Hello Mojubá Capoeira, capoeiristas, Mestre Ponceninho here. I have not done a video like this for quite some time now. A video where I explain what's going on, what I've been training, what I've been thinking, what I've been teaching to my students. But because we had a few days off, and we're still gonna have a few, hopefully not that many, but we're still gonna have more days off due to the holidays, to the New Year's, and of course due to COVID. We have not yet left what I call the COVID era. So obviously we are rightly so taking the right precautions in the classes, the in-person classes. So at the moment we are not in class. But because we had a few days off, I have been practicing, and I've also gone back to my notes. I've been looking. Notes are such a wonderful thing, because when you look back, whether it's like last month or 2 years ago and 3 years ago, it's a real archive. And it's our body is an archive. Our body represents what we practice. I often say that it is in a roda, it's in a game, and it's an overall sense of style that is developed in a certain group or in a certain individual artist that represents your practice, represents what you have been doing. Nevertheless, there are other forms of archive that can help and enhance. Video is one of them. Obviously, I have this channel so I can share some ideas with you guys. I have students that have been practicing with me for such a long time, and they can go back and just see where we are at the moment, where we were last month, that kind of thing. But for me, one of the most powerful ways of archiving my work, it is writing. It's no news to anybody. So I was going back to the notes, and I had a very strong phase of composition. So this is what I want to talk to you today about: composition. And the more I think about, more exciting it becomes. The first thing I want to say about composition is, obviously, composition is the way you put things together. The parts that you put together, the composition of the work. So we talk about that in calligraphy, the composition of the work, the overall look as well. And in dance, and in movement, and in music, and of course in capoeira. The first thing I want to say is that when I think about the idea of composition, I think I was always in love with the idea of composition, to the point that in the past it did not serve me very well. Why am I saying that? Because I remember, even at a young age, when I learned the movement. Now, of course, I'm generalizing. That's not for absolutely everything that I've learned, but I have really vivid image and memories of learning something, but not being truly happy until I found the ways that I would put that in a game, the ways that would combine with something else, the ways in which I would thread with something else. And I really wasn't aware of some of these dynamics in the past, but I had an idea of that. I'm not sure why, I'm not sure how I had that. Perhaps I was always into choreography. That could be, I'm just thinking that now, because of in my school we did makulele, we did all these dances. There's something about the overall arrangement of the movement that for me, very early on, spoke to me more than just doing a movement. Now, I'm saying that did not work in my favor, because you need to spend a lot of time just doing the movement. Forget the composition, forget how you're going to put in the game. All of these things come later. And this is bringing more to the point of this video today, that I'm going to say that perhaps in terms of practical use, what I'm telling you today is going to be perhaps more for intermediate to advanced in terms of practical use. That means you could finish this, watching this, and you go, I'm going to try some of that, okay? Why am I saying that? Because maybe if you were a beginner, this will serve you of great purpose in terms of inspiration and perhaps in terms of practice as well. But you have to start learning the movements, not necessarily in the composition, all the way down to the game. Now, of course, you do basic combinations and you're going to learn how to defend and to escape and use in the game. But I'm talking about an overall sense of style that the composition can give. So when I talk about things like really going deep into transitions, really taking care of the interconnections, really taking care of how today was funny because I said something in the class and I think it was really appreciated, which I said, I taught them a very specific way to go to the floor, a very specific way where you lower the back knee first and then it looks like a cat. But it doesn't work the same way if you lower the body first. You have to lower the knee first and the body sort of falls into the place. And I said, perhaps guys, I'm just showing you a way to fall in love in how to go to the floor. You know, it's a very poetic way of saying, but saying, I'm teaching you how to fall in love with the floor. And I think they appreciated that because I didn't think the way I spoke that they would appreciate, but they did, because that's what it is. It's finding a loving way, but falling in love with the way I go to the floor. You know, it's a very deep aspect of capoeira. How do I go to the floor? And obviously, how do I come back up again? So when I talk about these things in depth and we open and then we start to pick up that movement. Here's another example. I did a class, an MDT class, and I did this transition of ponte, bridge, into a macaco. And I didn't know that people really liked that. I didn't know. I just did, and I liked it. But so many messages after. And some students posting videos of them doing, Ponce Enim did this week. And they thought it was a really nice transition. And why that movement became like something that everybody starts to share. It's like a meme, right? Like people start to share, the movement get more known and then it gets expanded more. Well, simply because I was taking real care of the interconnection. And what I mean by this is that the macaco itself wasn't the main thing. The main thing was how I got into that macaco, how then obviously how I do the macaco itself, and then how I finish the macaco into the next movement. Now, you can think, are you talking about preparations? Not necessary. The way I did that macaco had nothing to do with, here's a classic preparation of macaco, was I found a way to use the momentum coming out of a bridge. How do I take this momentum? It's a back bend and I fold it in and then go into a macaco. So if I wanted to embellish, but I don't think I'm actually just embellishing, it is what happened. But if I wanted to embellish, what I'm saying to you is, I thought, how do I use the momentum, the energy of this bridge, this back bend, and translate into a macaco? Very clear what I was doing. You can see like, oh yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. And you could say then that bridge became a preparation for the macaco, for the back flip to happen. You can say, but it wasn't there until we worked in there. So, I mean, this is a long story, but I'm just giving you some examples how the composition. So anything from an overall sense of style that is developed to something that I think is very optimistic. And that is, when you think about the overall composition, this is something that my teacher told me, my calligraphy teacher told me this, Mr. Ewan Clayton. And he said to me, sometimes you make a mistake here, but you've got to keep going and see the overall composition. And I thought, that's just brilliant. And then everything else that I've been thinking and practicing came back to me, and all of these things that I told about my teenage years and all of that, thinking, of course. Otherwise, you get stuck into that being perfect at that movement. And we can spend good time thinking about that, with perfection. But being perfect somehow can disconnect you from the way people are going to relate to you when they watch your movement. Now, that's not to say you're going to not care about doing the movement properly and you're just going to, oh, it doesn't matter that it's not perfect, that it's a fine line. We want to be able to master the movement, be able to use the movement to our favor, but not be hooked up in a certain idea of perfection, because the movement is so alive, it's so organic, and it's going to change each day, depending on how you feel, depending on where you are, depending on the floor. Now, all these things could be a pessimistic way of looking. I don't think so. I think it's an optimistic way. It makes you excited about the next challenge that you're going to face into the overall composition. And it also expand your vision of your movements and expand your vision of the game, because it makes you think, okay, the road to mastery is not just mastering movements. Now I have to, how do they speak? How do the movements really speak to the other, one to the other? And so I wanted to share this with you because this is what I've been practicing lately. Of course, a lot of this is going to come back to my classes. It's going to be in my classes. I'm afraid to say it's all related to how the classes are going to be. But nevertheless, just as an inspiration, I want to tell you that what I've been practicing lately is the composition of the movements, one in relation to the other. A lot of times we'll come back to ginga or a ginga-ness. Yeah? That's a word that I invented. Yeah, ginga-ness. It's a ginga-ness. So the quality of the gingas in that movement and how we use that, how do we enhance the other movement. And then on top of it, we can coat with poetry and we can add the musicality and we go back into the rhythm. And guess what? In the end of the day, this is about how you feel when you move. Sometimes I say, this makes the movement feel very satisfying. And that can go such a long way. When you're moving, if you feel satisfied, but not in the sense of, I'm satisfied now, but it's just pleasant. You want to do more because it's pleasant. You can't wait for the next direction on lower that knee more because it's going to feel like this more. And you're like, yeah, it is a real craft, a real mastery, it's a language. And the reason why we practice is that I want to become a better storyteller. Where does this idea of storytelling come from? When I play capoeira with you, variação will come from simple movements, simple beginning, the body behaving simple and repetitive. People say, oh, this is very repetitive, this movement. They have to be. They have to be repetitive and simple. But then, when we start to develop a chemistry, by how do we develop a chemistry? That's another story, obviously, for another lecture. But by adjusting the timing, by mirroring each other, by having a sense of challenge yet empathy, all of these things, camaradagem, camaraderie, yet having that challenge, so it's exciting because of the challenge, a respectful challenge. All of those things are adjustments that we make in order to develop a chemistry. And when we develop a chemistry, those simple repetitive movements starts to take different expressions. That's the key. And when they start to take different expressions, we will start to move. I don't need to tell you, you already know. You will start to move in ways that you were not expecting, no one taught you. It's a different timing, a different eye catch, different movement like that. And that becomes the craft of the overall composition. But it must start with the soloist, with your movements, okay? I'm not telling you you're not going to practice in pairs. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you must spend a fair amount of time into the passion of how I move. Paradoxically, when you think about that, it's also going to enhance the game for both. Oh, if everybody thought like that, and then you can say, oh, if everybody thinks like that, we're all gonna play better. You know, I'm joking, but that's the idea. Né? If I'm a better soloist when I play my flute, and you're a great guitar player, when we meet, we can do great music. So we can both jam, we can both interact, we can both harmonize. That's the word. We can both harmonize. Okay? I feel I'm getting repetitive now, so I'm going to stop here. But do let me know if you felt that this was helpful, inspiring somehow. You know, share with your friends this idea. It might make some people think different in the way they play. They deviate the idea that when they play, it's just about separated movements, how they connect. All right? Have a wonderful week and fantastic New Year celebration coming up. And as I say to you guys, I want to dance my way into 2022. Tá bom? Obrigado. Axé.